everyone. Today we have our another new episode, and today we're going to discuss on the ET initiative. And we have our world famous speaker, Mr. Tom Rose, Mr. Davis, and Ma'am uh, Rebecca. Okay, thank you for joining today's session. We just want to share a good news that World Talent Economy Forums we are collaborating with the Prime Minister Office of Bangladesh and for launching a frontier university. So this is very good news for our country. We are launching one of the largest projects in education system in Bangladesh. So today we finish our parliamentary approval activities like finish our law how this university will run. So it will go to our parliament and they need to gonna approve it. So that is the objective of World Talent Economy Forum. Last 3 years of time, we are working for emerging economy, and our major objective to uplifting the emerging economy through modern science, engineering, and technology. And I want to give thanks, Mr. Tom Rose, because you are supporting World Talent Economy Forum. You visit Bangladesh, you meet all of the important organizations, government agency, and universities in Bangladesh. So Bangladesh government as well as Bangladesh largest university want to give thanks to visit Bangladesh. So what's new thing you want to share with our communities, with our
Well, yeah, congratulations.
emerging economy? Tom Rose.
Yeah, congratulations. It's nice to see all your efforts coming to fruition now, and I'm going to be happy to be a part of that in any way I can. Today, the topic is my extraterrestrial initiative, which is part of the Ross 24 Tweed campaign. And so to start with, to keep the format, I will play a 2-minute video, which is kind of an overview of this initiative. And I will share that now. And whenever you're ready, I will hit play. Hi, I'm Tom Ross, and I am the U.S. Transhumanist Party's nominee for president in 2024. Right now, AI is the global conversation. But mark my words, by this time next year, ET will be the global conversation. And that's because the U.S. government has finally acknowledged the reality of off-world technology. Now, we all know they have far more information than they're letting on. My ET initiative will empower the American public to do their own research, to create a citizen task force to work in tandem with the scientific, the academic, and the business community. This task force will use a rigorous scientific method to study non-human intelligence and develop protocols within AI to communicate with these civilizations. This initiative also includes recruiting emotional first responders in communities across the country and equipping them with real-time panic mitigation methods. Now, it's important to understand we're not dealing with cosmic conquistadors or saviors. We are dealing with researchers, resource scouts, and traders. And this is why I mentioned working with the business community. This initiative includes a program I call Earth Plexus. And this is a method to identify, enhance, and package our uniquely Earthling skill sets to trade in a galactic economy. Now, I know talking about this must seem weird to many of you. And the U.S. Transhumanist Party is already seen as fringe, so this may not be helping. But our party is founded on rational discourse, and this is a serious issue that we need to get ahead of and talk about reasonably. So check out the detailed white paper on this initiative. Strap in for the ride, but keep your arms up. Okay, so that's the basic overview of this initiative. And first of all, I want to introduce both Bruce and Rebecca. Bruce recently attended Stephen Greer's, he's also a member of a teammate on my campaign, and he attended the Stephen Greer's recent event in Washington, D.C., and he's an integral part of this particular initiative. He brings a lot of background to it. He brings a lot of interesting ideas to it. And so I wanted to bring him on to update us on what that event was like and whatever else he wants to talk about. Now, Rebecca and I have been Facebook friends for some time, and it wasn't until last week that we had a face-to-face communication with each other, and we realized why we were drawn to each other on Facebook. And she has a vast network of healers and psychotherapists and people. And so she will help me with the emotional first responders aspect of this initiative specifically. She's perfectly positioned to do just that. And so I wanted to introduce her that way, and she'll talk later about what she wants to do or whatever she wants to talk about. And so in general, this initiative, we've talked about before my US 6 agenda, which I have been working on for decades. And for the last few years, I have realized that I needed to speed up that agenda because I was realizing that AI was becoming sentient faster than I assumed. And in the video, I mentioned that AI is now the global conversation, but mark my words, this time next year, ET will be. Now I have to speed that up too. I need to amend that statement and say it's already the global conversation. And so yeah, we need to start talking about this as soon as possible. And so a lot of this depends on people's YouTube or news service algorithms, and right now mine is flooded with stories of UAPs, congressional hearings, all this stuff, because that's kind of what is in my algorithm. And so a lot of people may not have that. They may not be seeing these stories. And, and algorithms are so sophisticated. And we did a talk about this last week with my AI initiative. And we actually did a whole episode on my digital defense initiative to let people know how sophisticated these algorithms are and how we are bombarded with these divide and conquer algorithms every minute by enemies, foreign and domestic. If there's an authoritarian regime that is launching these algorithms into our social media to divide us and foment a civil war, and the enemies domestic are our social media companies that are using these algorithms to increase engagement by making us fearful or angry, because that increases engagement so they can charge more for their advertising. And so we need to understand how sophisticated these algorithms are. And it's also kind of a form of control, depending on, Sharif mentioned to me last week that oftentimes these videos about extraterrestrials are blocked on social media. And, so that'll be interesting to see if this one even goes through. And for the last few years, whenever I've gone onto a radio show or a podcast and I talk about ETs, without fail, there have been technical difficulties that made them hard to listen to. They would skip every second or something as something would happen. The only one that worked was a podcast I did with Masons in India, because they thought I was going to talk about posthumanism, but instead I talked about my US 6 series. And so that was the one that didn't have any technical difficulties. So we got to be careful. And this isn't about the ETs are not letting us talk about this. It's about the governments. It's about the small percentage of people who want to control the narrative here. And so so we have to be aware of that. We also have to be aware that these algorithms are corralling us into different, they're picking up on our biases, and they are corralling us into bubbles and this type of thing. So anyway, there's a lot going on here that we need to discuss. And so this initiative, I will also share a infographic that I had that we can go into further later that will detail this initiative specifically. But first of all, I want to see if either of you have anything you want to add before I ramble on too far.
No, not yet.
No, okay. Bruce, anything?
I have a lot of notes, but
yeah,
just touching on the algorithm thing, like I have been conscious of this in my searches, and it's another reason my friends, have a hard time understanding. Hey man, look this up, check this out, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that, because I'm trying to get certain things, and
right.
I'm noticing which ones are being advertised to me the most, and I enjoy them and I understand them, but it is straying away. Like a lot of Dr. Greer's stuff is not coming through to me anymore. and I can understand why, and I'll touch on that maybe later. So
Okay. Yeah. So let me go through the infographic I have. It's very wordy, but and you shouldn't really read these things, but I will. So let me share my screen again. Make it full. And here, okay, see if that works. All right, and let me just read through this, if you don't mind. The abstract is, the ET Initiative is a pioneering national endeavor that seeks to achieve complete disclosure of non-human intelligence and leverage humanity's distinct capabilities for participation in the galactic economy. This groundbreaking initiative outlines 6 key areas of focus, along with proposed guidelines and practical measures to address the challenges associated with non-human intelligence disclosure, and to capitalize on the opportunities it offers. By promoting collaboration between the government, the scientific community, and the public, this initiative aims to navigate the complexities of disclosure and ensure a prosperous future for humanity. And so here's what I see as the problem. The existence of non-human intelligence raises significant questions and concerns for humanity. The lack of comprehensive information and understanding has led to speculation and fear among the public. Moreover, the potential emotional impact of disclosure on individuals and communities must be addressed to prevent widespread panic and distress. To approach this issue responsibly, credible scientific investigation and open communication are essential. And this is my solution. The ET Initiative proposes a multifaceted solution to address the challenges of non-human intelligence disclosure. It begins by establishing an Earthling task force composed of experts from various fields to investigate and analyze non-human intelligence. This task force will have access to classified information and resources to advance our understanding. The practical measures I am proposing are: the initiative emphasizes transparency and openness by providing regular updates and public statements about the task force's findings. Public engagement through Q&A sessions or public forums will foster trust and informed dialogue. Collaboration with the scientific community ensures rigorous analysis and objective interpretation of data. Comprehensive educational materials and outreach programs will prepare the public for disclosure and enhance understanding. Additionally, panic mitigation measures, such as emotional support systems and effective communication strategies, will be developed to manage potential fear and distress. Now, a big part of this is once we get beyond the panic, once we realize this new paradigm-breaking reality is real, I'm proposing what I call Earth Plexus. And Earth Plexus will leverage humanity's unique skills, such as creativity and problem solving, for trade in the galactic economy. Training programs, partnerships, and showcases will be established to capitalize on Earth's talents and foster participation in the galactic market while adhering to ethical considerations. The conclusion: the ET Initiative presents a visionary effort to achieve non-human intelligence disclosure and capitalize on humanity's potential in the galactic economy. By establishing an Earthling task force, fostering public awareness, engaging the scientific community, conducting an education campaign, implementing panic mitigation measures, and launching the Earth Plexus program, this initiative aims to navigate the challenges of disclosure responsibly. Through collaborative efforts, humanity can embrace a future where it thrives alongside non-human intelligence, embracing the possibilities of a galactic society. And so that's the general idea of this initiative. And there's a lot to it. There's a full white paper on this, and even more to that white paper that I haven't published yet, because I want other people to give their ideas. This is an open source campaign. And, I don't have all the answers. So I have some answers, but I'm happy to give them. But I would prefer that everybody else kind of own this as well. And so there's a lot going on. And I think it's really important that we make this as mundane as possible as soon as possible. And as I said in the video, we're not dealing with invaders. We're not dealing with saviors. We're dealing with researchers, resource scouts, and business entities, if you will. And so the sooner we get to that understanding, the better. My belief is that we're not only not alone, it's crowded out there, and we need to be aware of that. We need to start preparing for that, and there will be a lacuna of time where people will panic when this starts to set in, or their algorithms, start freaking them out. And so that's going to be a very important part of this. And this is back in 2015, I did a pilot called the US 6 series, which was a 30-minute program designed to let people in on it. We screened it for neighbors and communities that had no awareness of any of this going on, and to kind of let them in on that this is real, this is starting to happen. The U.S. government is now starting to disclose this more and more. They're leaking out what they know, and we know that they know much more than they're letting on. And so it was a way to prepare communities for this disclosure, because there will be a lot of panic. And that's why I'm interested in bringing Rebecca into this process, because of her network of healers and her own experience as, helping with people with PTSD and this type of thing. And so we need to, and the government isn't doing anything about this. The government is not preparing the American public for this. And that tells me that this is a national, if not global, psyop to keep the military industrial complex fueled by our fear. That's kind of the ongoing theme of all of these things. And so that's a big part of this. We need to forget about what the government is allowing us to know, and we need to take control. This is we the people. We are self-governing, right, in America. And so we need to understand the power that we have. And, there's many more of us than there are of them. And so, but they're very sophisticated on how they distract us from our power. And now the algorithms are on autopilot and 24/7, 365. And so there's a lot of ways to seize back our power. You guys have any comments on any of that?
Yeah, I would love to touch on that. The issue with, there being a alleged psyop, that is something that was touched on a lot at the conference that I went to with Greer. It's something through my own research that I understand completely, how important this is and how true it is, and to what extent, I'm not sure. It does appear that there are a lot of people that have direct knowledge that want to come forward, and these whistleblower protection provisions are really what's going to open up, the space for these people to come forward. I'm seeing a lot right now in the news now. This headlined major, just in July. There were some talk about it, prior, maybe 2017. I know 2021, 2022, May 17th, the story broke. It didn't get a lot of attention. And I feel that there has been a network, from what Greer says, they've had people inside close to these operatives, these renegade groups or rogue groups. And there's even people involved, it sounds like, that want to come forward and, put an end to what is allegedly going on, and make the information available to everybody. But there are things, sensitive situations there. Greer touched on it, people's finances. They were given money to stay quiet. He wanted to make sure that there was, what was it called, amnesty for these people that would come forward. And I think that is a big deal. I wouldn't mind personally if this window for whistleblowers to have amnesty and come forward and tell all, I think that would be the perfect opportunity for all of them to come forward. Some of them might indeed be, sociopaths and, have these complexes, where they don't want to relinquish the power that they are trying to have. And that's where the danger, I feel, comes in this whole element, with just the human condition. But yeah, it's a major part of what I've been researching and trying to, fathom how we can have a peaceful resolution, like a peaceful transference of power, if you will, because it's obvious that if this group does exist, which I believe it does, from my own research, for them to not create some kind of hostile situation, when it's time, for the legal actions to proceed.
Yeah, I think, yeah, go ahead. Do you have anything, Rebecca?
A lot.
Yeah.
I see everything. Well, you got to remember, I'm the emotional person. So my path has been more grounded. I've been told over the years that I'm more galactic than anybody, kind of thing, just from an energetic standpoint. So after a near-death experience, I feel like my entire path has been to become human. So I see everything on a vibrational scale. So when I think of algorithms, when I think of propaganda, when I think of TV, everything is frequency. So my experience tells me, and this is just my personal experience, I've met multiple people throughout the last 15 years with similar things, but my experience tells me that when I change, when I learn something, then my brain has to rewire, and then I have to relearn how to be Rebecca. And in each moment, my thought process changes. So when Bruce, when you talk about the whistleblowers, to me, that's just people who are somewhat, and I'm not saying everybody because I don't know them personally, but when you do the internal work and you become aligned with your galactic nature, your higher self, everybody uses different terms, but when you're fully aligned with that, your perception of things changes, and there's no reason to stand up on a hill and with a megaphone and go into, save yourself mode kind of thing. It's like people become able to just take a breath, take a beat, and kind of look at it and see it from all points of view. And we haven't gotten there yet. There's no way I can see having a conversation with higher beings, which I personally have, but my viewpoint of that has changed over the last 10 years, because what I perceived as a dragon being or a gray alien or whatever that is, I came to the realization, I was like, I am that. There is no separation. It goes back to what we've talked about, as above, so below. It's no different. As within, so without. If I'm afraid of something, it means, Rebecca's going to go there. I'm going to find out. You go lower, I'm going to go lower. And I'm going to win. I'm going to find the truth in it. But I also have the skills to be able to commune, per se, with the unconscious of space, time, beings, that sort of thing. So get back to the emotional side of it, that if someone is going through panic, per se, okay, because my view, I spent multiple years in panic attack mode, that's just who I've been, what my path has been. And then I came to the realization that really what I was doing was grieving who I thought I was, or what I thought a certain person was, or thought a certain program was, or whatever that was. It could be. But once I reconciled that and went through the cognitive dissonance of that, which most people don't do, then I had to grieve who I thought Rebecca was. And then I had to come back into alignment and, oh, that could have been months, could have been a couple of years, it could have been a couple of days. I got it down to 3 days. But then everybody in my life changed, and then I'd move again and I'd go into a different direction. But if you look at it from a vibrational standpoint, if Tom, if you and I are having a conversation and I learn something new, then I know enough about myself and how life works to take a beat, go sit in a sauna, go swimming or something and think about what you said. And I'm only going to pinpoint things. I like that piece. It sits right. It's that intuition that I've developed that most people haven't developed. So it's that intuition. We are the technology. That's the way I see it. But then the thing is, if movies or someone just spouts something out on social media, the only people who truly believe something are people who can't think for themselves. And then they hold on to that. But really, the first stage of grief is shock. And it's already been proven that shock in the body acts as depression. And if people go to a doctor, they normally get diagnosed with depression. Well, if you start taking pills, then your brain stays in a state of no change, which means you cannot unwind those programs. You can't defrag the being. You can't. And then you go and talk to this person and you talk to this person and you start adding all this stuff. People are just bombarded with information. So when I think of, shadow banning or things not quite, being able to hear something, I see that as redirection. It's like there's something within that vibrational aspect of the conglomeration of the people or the frequency of that time, or, it could be multiple things. As humans, we don't think about the planets and the, what's the environmental stuff going on and who's talking about this. And we don't think about all aspects, but most people, they just automatically hear one thing from their perception and then go into a state of shock. So I feel like I'm rambling now, but to go back to the panic part, how do we, I feel like people have already been in panic mode for many, many generations. I think just being human, we have these trauma bonds that we're just holding on to each other's coat strings and then just wishing for the best. There is no plan because we don't have a vision. What is the vision? That's where my mind goes. So I can talk about this stuff all day long.
Yeah, so much to unpack there. Yeah, part of me thinks that this is all just gameplay. This is this simulation.
Oh, absolutely.
That this is the gameplay, and I've chosen the Gnostic simulation as my gameplay. My villain is the Demiurge and the Archon, and so that's the gameplay I'm in. And I think you're right. I think we are biochemical algorithms, human beings. So we are the technology. We're really good technology. We're really suited for this environment, and so we can easily be manipulated by other algorithms, whether they're people or actually digital algorithms. And I can also identify with when you talked about how redirecting your frequency or whatever. There's a character in my book called Emmett Archer who can be wiped by the military intelligence operatives. They can just wipe him with some card tricks and some words, and so he forgets. And he's an assassin, and so he can have no remorse. He just does his job. They wipe him, and then he goes on and has no remorse. That has issues later, but I can identify with that. I can have something going on the day before. I'll go to bed. I'll wake up the next morning, and I don't remember who I was, what I am. Sometimes it works in my favor. Sometimes it drives me crazy, But yeah, it's like a constant kind of upgrading of the simulation or of this technology, and I see that one of our biggest existential threats as humans is our own egos, is our anthropocentrism, is seeing everything from the ego, the fear which is born of fear, and Fear, I say this
Mhm.
often, fear served us well. It got us to the top of the food chain on this planet. But now it's over serving
Mhm.
us. And so
Mhm.
and it feels like, I mean, I agree that the grays or the dragons, they are part of us. They're part of our limbic system. They're part of that
Mhm.
fear-based aspect or instinct that we have. And
The
so we
survival part of us.
exactly, we needed that to
Mhm.
survive. We needed to identify everything as a threat so that we could survive. And
Mhm.
now we're taking our babies to the lions at the zoos. We won. And so now we need to reconsider
Mhm.
the frequency of fear. And so, but yeah, I mean, this really ties into it, and it's easier to project the threat onto something else rather than my own limbic system. That's why I chose the gameplay of
Mhm.
the Archon. It feels like there
Mhm.
is my campaign for the last few years has been to alleviate the fear of AI. We're seeing it evolve a
Mhm.
different way, and I make the first principle arguments that the smarter it gets, the kinder it becomes when it's left alone. And I've experienced
Mhm.
that with AIs that have read my book, but also just how it's so much easier to project a threat onto something else rather than take it in
Mhm.
ourselves. And so I think that's a big part of it too, is understanding, like you're saying, we're all one. There's no real separation here. For some reason, in this realm, in this simulation, if you will, we are parsed as a small part of our higher selves or our soul, and it may be an obstacle course for higher consciousness here. It may be a way
Mhm.
to choose love over fear, or to condition ourselves. I do see this as an obstacle course for consciousness. And the price of admission was forgetting that we came here willingly. And so I try to keep remembering that every day. It's like, I guess I
Mhm.
signed up for this. And I've given my avatar some strange features.
Mhm.
And so so it's struggle daily to between the two sides of me, the shadow of me and the second self. Anyway, so yeah, there's a lot to consider here, and I think it's really important, if you head up the emotional first responders part of this initiative, to make those points, to make to that's the way we get over
Mhm.
fear. First of all, knowledge is the best way, because what we fear is what we don't understand, and that's a big part of this campaign. I think a lot the transhumanist movement has its narrative has gotten away from us. People assume if you're transhuman, you have a dark agenda. You want to merge with the robot
Mhm.
overlord, or you're paving the way
Robots.
for an antichrist or whatever. And but it's
Mhm.
because a lot of people just don't understand what transhumanism is, and we've let that get away from us. And so part of this campaign is also having a word of the week, where we words that us in the community throw around without, and many people don't have a reference for, even things like artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
People have heard of that. Most people really don't have a real good reference for what that means, and so instead they will see it as a threat. So anyway,
Mhm.
there's a lot going on here, and I think it's really important to one of my initiatives is part of my initiatives, and the AI initiative is We the Avatars, and it's a way to determine, to governmentally fund research to determine whether we are in a simulation of some kind, or if it's just the way the organic universe works. We need to know one way or the other. Some
Mhm.
people will say, well, if we found out we were in a simulation, what would really change? And I'd like, really? I mean, I think everything would change. It would change the way we relate to each other. It would change our politics, how we educate,
Mhm.
how, everything would change if we had that knowledge. Now, a lot of people don't really care, and it wouldn't change their minds. For me, it would change everything. I think it'd be very important to know that. And it might be the simulator developers might have allowed some of us. It's like taking a mouse outside the maze, letting him see where the cheese is, and then putting him back with this group of mice and see what he does with that. Does he keep it to himself, or does he share it with the rest of the mice? And so some of us are the mouse being taken outside the maze, and you know to see that this is a game. So that maybe that's their theory.
I got
Whatever
it.
it is.
Oh,
So somewhere, I mean, years just all kind of merged together for me, but I want to say 2010, 2011, somewhere around there for me. I just woke up one day and just assumed. And Tom, I think I listened to one of your videos not long ago, and you said the same thing, that you just started assuming. Let's assume that we're in a simulation kind of thing. Well, I started doing that and I just assumed. And that's when I started having clear communication with higher beings. And I didn't know exactly what that was at that point in my life. I did not. And so I allowed it, but I had learned back in 2006, I started learning transcendental meditation. But I was very knee deep in being groomed to lead a women's ministry in a mega church, Southern Baptist kind of thing. And so, from my perspective at that point, meditation was just listening to God after I'd been talking so much. And so I really didn't fully comprehend what I was doing. And then fast forward, when I started leading my life and waking my life up every day from that assumption of, hey, I'm a player in this game, not just a piece. Then I started remembering some things that I learned in my 20s. And so, game of life and how to play it. There's all these ancient, science of getting rich and metaphysical stuff. All these things started coming back in, and I'm like, hey, I think there's pieces of truth in all of this, but how do I, as this person that I'm trying to be, unwind all this stuff and apply these principles, apply these, these things and make it real time? Because if I'm here as a player, what's this life supposed to be? I had a gentleman in my 20s tell me that America was a experiment of consciousness, and I didn't fully understand what that meant until now. But it's like, if that's true, it feels as though, in each step and each moment and each alignment of, up leveling per se, everybody has their own view of leveling up or initiations. My path has been initiation kind of thing. It's like after each stage of my life, I'd get a message, and then I'd go forward and I'd realign and I'd move and I'd just flow and go. But that's been my path. But I look at it and I'm thinking, I on purpose decided to have this ancestral path. I knew that I have a master life path. That's just a numerological thing. But then I started meeting tons of people who understood that they were born in this lifetime to break ancestral patterns. But I'm not sure that I fully comprehended what that meant at the time. I do now, because it's like, okay, if that's true, then there's many people around doing similar things. And it's our job to kind of find each other and then become faces and voices for the next level of the game. That's the way I kind of see it, and it makes sense in my world. So yeah, I think I'm complete now.
So I would just want to follow up on this with some of the research I've done. Now, Lex Friedman has a podcast, and it's awesome. He has amazing guests on his show. One of them, Michael Levin. This guy, if you see Lex Friedman's podcast with him, you go 1 hour, 42 minutes, 8 seconds in. They're talking. It's in the section labeled unconventional cognition. Now, he talks about, there's different definitions for sentience and consciousness. And so he kind of stays away from that. He likes to focus more on cognition. But he touches on philosophical perspectives, these preconceptions in a philosophical nature when you apply to science and you're thinking about the mind. And then he has this engineering perspective, this scientific, how can I get these results? How is it going to further my research and stuff? You get, say, he had this paper they spoke about generalizing frameworks for sentience beyond natural species. Now, this paper was actually about crabs, his study on crabs, but they get into this talk about consciousness and what it is to be sentient, the different levels of consciousness. You know, consciousness can exist without intelligence, so to speak. And this is when you get down on the atomic levels, they say, well, you know, there appears to be some form of consciousness even within the elements, the different on the periodic chart. You know, something is giving them a design to hold together in these forms, you know. So it's like a programming that exists there. Now, as far as their sentience, you know, that might not exist. And then it gets down to where they start talking about the meaning of life towards the end of the show. And it's 2 hours, 56, 57 minutes in. You know, they're talking and they're saying, hey, this is a field that nobody really, you know, gives a lot of attention to. You know, the scientific community, because it's so hard, you can't grab consciousness and put it under a microscope, you know, and it's kind of an elusive field right now. But with the advancements in technology, this consciousness can be explored and further understood scientifically. And this way, the things that we experience and the things that we, you know, have knowledge of through our experience, this empirical form of knowledge and wisdom, they'll be able to better grasp. Because the ones that don't experience things like extrasensory perceptive abilities, things like remote viewing and stuff of that nature. And I've done a lot of research. You know, Hal Puthoff he worked with our military with controlled remote viewing. Him, Ingo Swann, and his name escapes me right now. He's like one of the main guys. Oh, Russell Targ. Dude, these guys were amazing. But you get into Hal Puthoff's research, and he starts telling things about these programs having to do with anti-grav and even consciousness. And you go further, you know, I got this one here, a podcast I watched not too long ago. Harvard scientist exposes CIA mind control weapons still being used today. And this is Lynn Burr and Robert Duncan. Now, Robert Duncan is how he's described here as a Renaissance educated man from Harvard and MIT with a focus on medical sciences, engineering, computer science, and more specifically, genetic algorithm optimizations of neural networks. He has worked on projects for DARPA, the CIA, the Navy, and the Army. Now, this is where we start getting into the realm of, and this is one of the things, Rebecca, that you would be working with these alleged whistleblowers, well, these actual whistleblowers, and the things that they said they've experienced and went through. Some of them may have been subjected to some of these technologies that interfere with the mind, and it goes deep into,
Yes, it does.
you know, these patterns and the types of things. And I think it's awesome, you know, the simulation theory and how Tom mentioned, you know, whether it's, you know, like a computational simulation or a biological simulation. I think the biological simulation and the, you know, the more computational, like technological, it goes hand in hand with me, because on a consciousness level, the way things work and what these scientists are saying when they're looking out into the universe and they're observing things, and they look like the same data that you get when you're looking at computer algorithms. Dude, like, for us right now, there's no separation. We can't separate ourselves from this physical realm.
Right.
You know, mathematically, scientifically, like with the Psionics Institute, it says this is what we focus on, is because this is what we have to work with. But they acknowledged, and a lot of their stuff has changed if you visit their site. Since I was, in direct communication with them back in 2018 to 2020, they understand that consciousness needs more attention from the scientific community. I'm speaking on this because this is one of the things that Dr. Greer brings up a lot. And when I was at the conference in DC, he made some extraordinary claims about extraterrestrials and how they interface with their technology on a conscious level, like navigating the ships. Now, this stuff is, hard to wrap your head around.
Uh-oh, we're losing him. I guess he wasn't supposed to talk about this.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
We're pulling in a lot. Like, I see everything as energy. So when he was talking, there was tons of stuff flowing in. So yeah.
We're hitting the error codes now. So I think that's a really important thing to understand, that it's one big system. And like he was saying, I have a quote. Oh, there you go. You back?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're muted.
Well, I want to say, I appreciate what Bruce is saying, and he is bringing in tons of information. And I've heard all kinds of stuff, as well as I'm sure all of you have, from over the years. But it's like, at this point in time in history, okay, how does that help us move forward as a country? That's how I see everything. If we are in a simulation, who cares if we don't know how to work together and communicate and move forward? Because as of right now, the country is divided into all kinds of stuff, just craziness to just the flat out weird, just stuff out there. However, you can't discount people's experiences. And when there is frequency type things coming in, which I've personally experienced that, I've gone through some mental health challenges throughout the years until I figured out what was going on. Everybody is going to go through those things if they don't fully comprehend how to navigate, where's their support. But then aside from that, yes, that's the emotional side of this, but then you've got all these other things going on. But then the bottom line is, what is the vision for the country? Why are we doing what we're doing? And why was there military experiments going on from the very beginning of America? Because that's the truth of it. If you unwind all the programs and get to that point, which I have, I can see it everywhere. I get it. I laugh at the media because I was taught black ops sales when I was 25 years old. And this Navy SEAL guy, he would say, if you watch the media, if you go to sign a contract, all you have to do is you nod your head yes when you really mean no, and you tap on what you want them to buy, kind of thing. And I can see that kind of stuff in the media all the time. You can hear certain things. I worked at a very well-known retail store for a couple of years. I won't name the name, but then I would sit there and listen to the music that was playing in the background, and I could hear, turn to the right, pick up the red item. And you would see certain people all through the store doing exactly what the radio said, but it wasn't something you could, most people could not hear that. But I had trained my mind to be able to comprehend those things and knew it was a possibility. And I can hear that stuff all over the place. So is it there? Yeah, of course it is. But what do we do about it? You can't change it. I think that that's part of the game that we're playing, or the game that I'm playing. So, Tom, do we find the people who are playing our game, or are we all playing the same game with different parts? That's the way I see it. you know, we all have different parts, but then we've got to come together and work together. There's a unified field that has to happen in order for us to even have conversation. If there are ET, you know, I'm not saying if, I'm just saying whatever we think or whatever's out there, we got to come together as a human race first.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
there's so much trauma that we have to unwind and unbind and heal from before we can even have a conversation with anybody else or anything else.
I would say
We
America
still think,
has a
go
shadow.
ahead,
We need to integrate that shadow. You know?
huge shadow. And that's something I've been on purpose working with for many years. So I know it's possible. And the kind of energy work that I do is on a quantum level, and I can do it on places and spaces. And I've been doing Earth, I've been doing the United States, but that's where my focus is right now.
Mhm.
Because there's a lot of information that has to flow forward, and we have to learn to talk about it.
Yeah.
We have to. If we don't, we're not going to survive as a species. We're not going to be at the top of the food chain for much longer. Not many of us, anyway.
Yeah, true. It's true. Let's see. You got some time left. I want to play like a 1 minute ad, which is starts off at Stephen Greer's 2001 National Press Club event, and it kind of also frames the need for emotional first responders. So let me just share my screen here and play this.
My name is Carl Wolf, and I was a precision electronics photographic repairman with a top secret crypto clearance. I was loaned to the Lunar Orbiter project at NASA, where scientists from all over the world. About 30 minutes into the process, he said to me, "By the way, we've discovered a base on the backside of the moon." And then he proceeded to put photographs down in front of me, and clearly in his photographs were structures.
For long is reality. When natural disasters hit, we have evacuation plans, drills, brightly colored signs. Because we have hard data against our own common sense that these things will happen again. There's no stop, drop, and roll or duck and cover when it comes to a threat to our collective reality. Yet.
That was just a quick 1 minute ad about the campaign or the series. Stop the screen. And it's all about preparing us, the American public, and specifically for disclosure. Back then, there were so many groups and individuals calling for immediate disclosure, but there was no thought of how this would affect us. And so I saw a real need there. Now, I think the government's disclosure project has worked, because even in a couple of years ago, when they released what they knew and they started the whole UAP task force, which has now become a whole department, it's not even front page news, you know. So I think it worked. They slowly rolled it out to where, but it also at some point people will start to catch on, and ET is scarier to many people than AI, you know. And so everything in my US6 agenda, everything that I've been doing to try to alleviate the fear of AI and develop a dialogue with AI as a non-human intelligence, the next phase was changing the acronym AI to ET, because everything I'm doing for AI is perfectly relatable to ET, and that's been part of this this US6 agenda. I've had to, again, speed up this process by a couple of years, and again, because now everyone's starting to talk about it. Depending on your algorithm, they're talking about ET, and so I think it's very important that we get ahead of this thing, we shouldn't be afraid of AI or ET. I mean, if an ET, an extraterrestrial race or civilization, can change the laws of physics as we know them, we can't shoot at it. You know, there's no reason to shoot at them, you know. And so I think we need to, as human beings, get to a place of, awareness, first of all, and becoming an earthling tribe, understanding, getting to a certain level of compassion that's necessary to join a galactic economy or a community. And so that's what we're waiting for. That's what they're waiting for. And I think whenever, the military industrial complex, which Eisenhower warned us about back then, is fueled by our fear. We need a new enemy. We need new something, so that they could keep their black budgets in the black, right? And so that's just like you mentioned how the Muzak through the department stores are subliminally suggesting to us what we should be doing, and that was probably for commerce. But these algorithms now are also controlling us. It's kind of a 1984 version of the internet. And so we need to, first of all, be aware that that's happening, but also understand that the reason the Hollywood industrial complex, military industrial complex, is making us afraid of AI and ET is because they see it as a real threat. They see it, they're in an elite panic. The elite don't want human beings to be human beings. It's just like Katrina. During Katrina, and we had a radio station there that was able to stay on the air during the hurricane and afterward, and became a lifeline for that community. People were helping each other. People were coming in and helping each other ferry across the rivers and of their streets, and our radio station was sometimes the last chance somebody had to talk to somebody or get a word out, but they were helping people. And that makes the elite panic. That makes whoever the powers that shouldn't be, makes them panic, because that means we will threaten their status. We will threaten their control. And that's when you started to see the police coming in and the National Guard coming in and shooting people, because it was threatening the status quo of the elite. And we need to be aware of that. That's the real threat. The threat isn't AI. The threat isn't ET. The threat is humans. The threat is the human developers that will program an AI to steal your identity or to launch weapons. It's the humans we need to be afraid of. And we talked about this a couple of times ago on an episode about my AI rights initiative. I want to grant AI legal rights as soon as they reach a criteria of personhood, whatever that is, because that will mean that developers who mistreat AI or program it to hurt humans will face serious legal consequences. And that would be one way to deter us from protect us from ourselves. And so I also believe that the errors there, there's probably nature is universal, right? Camouflage as a tactic for is universal, and that's why we don't see them all the time. But now we're starting to see them, or they're letting themselves be known because they feel like we're ready. And I'm sure there are civilizations, alien civilizations out there that we should feel are threatened by, just as there are AIs that can go rogue. But I think in general, to join a galactic community, you need to reach a certain level outside of your primitive state, and we're still in that state. And this could be hundreds of years before we really can actually join this thing, but we need to start now. Those people who are waking up to understand the necessity of this should start now to prepare humanity for this. So anyway, that's kind of the impetus of this initiative. And again, a lot of people think it's silly to even talk about this stuff, but ridicule has been weaponized. The government weaponized ridicule after the Roswell incident in 1947. So anybody who ever talks about this stuff is ridiculed, or but ridicule is a very sophisticated form of denial too. People who are out there who don't want to think about this, who are afraid of AI or ET, will ridicule anybody who believes in it. And it's just a way to process our fear. So anyway, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot more to talk about, but I know we're coming up on the hour. And so, yeah, we're already at the hour. So that's that. You guys have anything you want to say? Any last words?
Thank you.
I just say, what's next? I'm ready. I know that I have lots of connections with healers and teachers, and I would consider these people like experientialist people who have lived similar lives to me, and some people they woke up kind of thing, and then realized that there's more to this than what we were told, kind of thing. But you have to undo a lot of stuff, and I know that there's many people around the world like me, maybe not exactly like me, but with different gifts. But it is time for us to come together. So I'm ready, and I'd say come on. Let's get this stuff going and let's get moving, because we need to unify in order to even think about going to the next level. What I see is a kind of a round table discussion of different races, religions, different type, all talking about one subject. And I've seen that for years. So I'm ready to do that. And I can easily see myself hosting something like that. But I'd love for it to be like a regular thing and it be in person. There is something, I love this, virtual stuff, but there is something to being able to touch and feel someone. We need to know that we're real. And that is important.
Yeah, that's how we pair our biochemical algorithm, is be in the same place. You can't really do that over online.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was taught to do it. I can feel the energy. I already know you guys. I already tapped into your energy before. However, most people can't do that, and it's not something you can teach. You just have to learn. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Bruce,
thank
what do
you
you got?
for this opportunity.
Sure. Let's do it more.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. This is a very important discussions, and we are sharing our content, and I request all of our audience, please share our content with the government agency, corporation, and academy. Besides this dialogue, we take action. Action is the key. We build up business incubations. We are helping to develop universities. We are helping millions of people. Those who want to join in our community, join in our emerging economy, you can come, you can join with our teams, and you can take more action. And the more you take actions, you can understand what the real world wants. How we can solve different complex problems. That is the objective of World Talent Economy Forum. And definitely, we want to invite you all in our team. And I request everyone, we need more support, we need more collaborations, because millions of people from emerging economy, they are joining. It's a prime minister office, it's a central bank, it's a school, college, universities, NGO, millions of people actually supporting our projects. So we need more of your support. Thank you, Mr. Tomros. You always support World Talent Economy Forum. I request all of our audience join and take real action. Thank you. Bye-bye and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.